There are two kinds of pain. Sort of pain that makes you strong, or useless pain. Sort of pain that's only suffering. I have no patience for useless things. Moments like this require someone who will act. Will do the unpleasant thing, the necessary thing.
If you have Netflix, you should be watching this series. If you don't have Netflix, then you should get Netflix to watch this series. This is a great show. It's frankly, it's better than anything that's on TV, pretty much. It's television that's better than, my phone's going off. It's television that's better than, you know, anything that's on television, but it's not on television. It's on Netflix. I'll get into the premise really quick. It's Kevin Spacey he's the House Majority Whip, and he, after the president, and there's a newly elected president who promised him a spot as the Secretary of State, but they pass him over. And so he basically goes rogue, and he starts to, manipulate the balance of power and do all these things behind the scenes and behind closed doors. And he really, he kind of runs the show behind the scenes. He basically runs the government. And the show, it's so well executed. It's just amazing. It's an amazing cast. It's amazing acting. I'm not going to spoil any of it because you should be watching it, and I want everyone to watch it. But it's just, it has production values that are seemingly better than a movie, and the writing is better than in, the great shows that are on TV right now, like Mad Men, or it's better than movies. It's better than the writing that you'll see in most movies. It's something about it is, and so it is very interesting that its home is exclusively the internet. That's kind of interesting, which raises questions about its contention for awards. Obviously it'll have contention for internet awards, but I'm just, in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, can this get an Emmy, or what is this? But this show, it has a tendency of going in very dark places, and you're not really sure who to root for, if you're supposed to root for anyone. I wouldn't say there's a villain of any of them, and no character in the show seems to be a villain. Not really. It's kind of like everyone is a villain to everyone else. It's layered. But another thing that you'll notice about the plot is it works in phases. The first batch of episodes are about this bill about education, and then it becomes about getting this representative elected to governor as the governor to Pennsylvania, and that's the best plot of the plot line of the show. And then the last 4 episodes are pretty much exclusively about Kevin Spacey's character taking a huge a huge power grab. Risking a huge power grab, and that's I like that about the show. It wasn't necessary that you had it does have an episodic nature, but it does feel like every episode is a part of a whole, is a part of a series. But there's individual episodes, episode 8 really doesn't have anything to do with anything else that's happening in the series, and I really like episode 8. It's about, I can kind of get a little bit spoily on this episode. It's about Frank goes to his Aldamada, his military academy, where they're opening a new library that's being named after him, and he goes out, he spends the night drinking in the old library that's going to be demolished. And it's a really interesting, really cool character episode, and you really get to see a different side of Frank as a character, and all the characters are just so well drawn and complex in this show. But what I'm really interested in talking about is this gotta fix my jacket, is this Netflix model that we're seeing, and will this change anything? Honestly, you have to think about the practical before you think about, like, we can sit here and imagine, like, what this will do all the fucking day, but you have to think about the practical here. And one thing you really should think about first is, as a customer to Netflix, is will this raise the cost of Netflix? Will this raise the cost of their rates? And probably. It should be expected anyways, but how much and how often, and will it be a couple, like, bumps up? And will it get to a point where they have a couple series, and apparently House of Cards is pretty expensive, they have a couple series, and it's not like, it doesn't have to really come down to the cost of those series. It could just be that they have a couple series and they see it as a justification to raise their costs. It might come to a situation where it does become something rather expensive. And another thing you have to think about is this is going to make other websites are going to start doing this. Of course they are. Maybe Hulu will find a way to resurrect itself from the dead and start doing this. Probably not. But other websites will start doing this, and it might become like a HBO versus like Showtime versus Cinemax, even though HBO and Cinemax are actually together. But, you know, HBO versus Showtime versus Starz versus the fucking Movie Channel. Is the Movie Channel still around? I remember the Movie Channel was actually a pretty good one. But it's going to come down to like that situation. And it's going to create these websites that are just, yeah, that are like those, like, Netflix is becoming an HBO more or less. And we have Arrested Development coming soon. And that's something that now, if we want to get into more like speculative kind of bullshit territory where like I have no idea if this is really going to happen or not, I kind of see this as being like more of a like it legitimizes streaming as like something for creatives and for producers to put something out on. But I don't know. Well, one, it kind of is a legitimate source of like revenue and income for people, but it's not really looked upon as legitimate. Like YouTube is still looked upon as like as YouTube, you know, where there's like fart videos and baby videos and copyright infringement up the ass, and I'm guilty of it. So it's not really seen as like a legitimate business or like an industry. And I think maybe this will legitimize it. This will make it something like that. But that comes with a whole host of problems, as something becoming an industry usually does. But to get it, like, thinking about the positive things that might happen, again, it might open doors. It might become, you know, a quicker revenue thing, quicker revenue, and it might legitimize streaming, and it might, it just might legitimize everything. And it kind of like already, like, you can release a movie on Netflix nowadays. You can just like make a $2,000 movie and release it on Netflix. You gotta like get a contract with them and stuff, but it might make that idea more legitimate and more profitable and more marketable, because, you know, there was a time and place for the direct-to-video market that was pretty huge. So that we might see that happen. But the problem with that is it makes it into an industry, and that makes it harder to get into because, you know, you have to make an industry hard to get into, because if they let everybody into an industry, it's a pretty weak industry. So it will make it harder to get into. It will make like crappy videos like this like kind of obsolete, and I'm gonna have to like step up my game, and I plan on stepping up my game with a few other different ideas. But when it becomes like a full-on like industry, it's gonna be like, this is not gonna happen. It's just gonna be harder to get into, and it shouldn't really be feared. It should just be like expected, because this is always what happens. But there'll still be like an underground. There'll still be like idiots doing this, but there won't be idiots doing this making money off of it, you know? Like, you're gonna have to do something that's professional and good to make money off of this in the near future. So everybody step up the game. But again, if you have Netflix, watch House of Cards. If you don't have Netflix, get Netflix. It's like $8 to stream, just the streaming package. So fucking why? I don't even know like people who don't have a Netflix. So when I say get Netflix, it's, I don't even know who I'm talking to. So get Netflix, watch House of Cards if you already have it. Then watch all the other great programs that they have on that shit. Oh, one thing I want to mention, I didn't write this down. I have, as you heard, I have notes that just fell to the floor. But one thing I find interesting is this is kind of a rebound from the whole Quickster debacle that happened there for a second, where they almost became like like a streaming website and then a website where you can just get your DVDs, and everyone freaked out for a second, and it was called it was called Quickster, and the guy's Twitter icon was Elmo smoking weed. It was ridiculous. It was this ridiculous thing that happened, and Netflix lost like 1/4 of a share after that happened. It was huge, and then something happened, and then they rebound, like a couple months later, they rebound with like having the most streaming of anything on like certain devices, and they really rebound. And it's just interesting that people have really quickly forgotten that. You know, it's interesting that people have really quickly like forgiven Netflix, and that like, a lot of people have come back, and that now that they have House of Cards, something that is really of great quality, that I think they say, hey, we have this now, and then it's like, hey, here comes Arrested Development in a couple months. It's like, oh, like you kind of have to come back to them. And now I sound like I'm shilling for Netflix, which is kind of sickening. So if you haven't seen it, go out and watch it, or stay home and watch it. You don't even have to go anywhere. Come on, people.
There. No more pain.